Welcome to RSAC Conference 2025. We're here recording live from the CyberRisk TV studio and broadcast alley at Moscone West. I'm your host, Mandy Logan, and joining me for this interview is Hed Kovetz, CEO and co-founder at Silverfort. Welcome, Hed.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, I'm so glad you were here, and I think it's nice we're at the start, we're at the fresh point of
Yeah.
RSAC, right? So you haven't talked out, which means that you're going to share a lot with us right now, correct?
Yeah, great.
And I am excited about this because though I don't actively work in the space, I do find identity management to be, in my view, absolutely a cornerstone of all security.
Yeah.
And now it seems as though you have a slightly different take than some. And I'm curious if you will expand on what your take is on IAM versus all the rest of identity security.
Yeah, it's I think very important topic that I think has been very unclear for years, and I think that people have been thinking about identity security and IAM as basically the same thing. And I really don't see it like that. I think that identity security is really the let's say the task of protecting the identities from compromise, where IAM, or identity and access management, that's the identity infrastructure. That's just managing your identities. You know, when a new employee joins the company, you need to create an identity for them. There's a whole life cycle and things that have to do with productivity that are not really about security. And then identity security is the element of securing that. For many years, we thought about it as just the same thing. You know, security was a feature of IAM. But I think that just like in other areas of security, if you think about it, endpoint security or cloud security or network security, you now have dedicated products for that, right? Securing the cloud, for example, is no longer just a feature that you get from the cloud provider. You buy a platform that
Correct.
does cloud security. And the reason for that is that you have multiple cloud providers. So when you had one, you could just buy security from them specifically, from Azure or from AWS. But since you have a few different cloud providers, you need a cloud security platform that will sit on top of all these silos. Identity is going through the same evolution now. You know, in the past it was simple. You had one type of identity on-prem. Today you have so many different identity management solutions, right? Companies have Active Directory on-prem, and they have Okta for the cloud, and they have AWS and Google and SaaS applications, and all of these islands of identity management need security, and they need unified security. And that's why finally identity security is becoming its own layer on top of all these islands of identity management.
So I want to ask your opinion on something. Yesterday I attended the keynote by Wendy Nather at B-Side San Francisco. And one part she brought out was her view that antivirus was the silver bullet that was killing correct development of software. That it started requiring, well, now let's buy something else to secure this instead of it being secure from the start or being correct
Yeah.
from the start. So I am curious on your take with that. Do you feel like it is ever going to be possible for identity security to actually be completely handled within either the software or the infrastructure that was currently there, or will it always be something that requires an external point?
My answer might disappoint you.
Go for it, I'm here for that.
I think that it has to be a separate solution, because in order to secure identities, you need to understand the full context of what the identity is doing, right? Now, if you think about a person, you may have a few different accounts, a few different identities, one in Azure and one in Salesforce and one in your on-prem legacy environment. Now, if you think about securing each of these as just an element of that specific piece of infrastructure, you're never going to have the full context. I'll give you an example. You could today log in to one of your cloud applications using, let's say, Okta. And they have security features in there, right? They have like multi-factor authentication, and they can detect bad behaviors. And let's say that they do all of that successfully, and they discover that it's really not you. It's someone else who took over your account. So they will block you, right? But you can now still log in to your other account in Azure or in the on-prem Active Directory infrastructure. because these solutions don't even talk to each other. So if you're trying to secure each of these things as just a feature of that specific infrastructure, you're not going to have the full context. I think the best analogy of that is, imagine if every type of endpoint will have its own endpoint security feature. So, Lenovo or Apple or Dell will have their own endpoint security that only protects Lenovo computers. That just doesn't give you the full context of what the organization needs.
But why, in your view, is that more required for identity security?
Because in identity, for a long time we just had one identity on-prem, our Active Directory, that was kind of the most common one. And that had the full context of what the user is doing. So we could argue that security still wasn't good, but at least it was simple. Now that people have multiple identities because of moving to the cloud, because of hybrid and multi-cloud environments, because companies acquire other companies. So you
Right.
could have Okta, but then you acquire the company and they're using Ping. What do you do? Like, it's becoming more and more complex. And then adding to that is the fact that people now can work from anywhere and they can use any device.
Any device, exactly.
So, a lot of these other security elements like network security or endpoint security are becoming less effective now. And it's almost like identity is the last line of defense. If I can log in from anywhere using any device, as long as I can prove that it's me, then it means that identity is the only thing that stops an attacker from really accessing anything that the organization have. So identity security is becoming more important. It's also becoming more complex, right? Because of all these silos. And we just need a new approach, a more consolidated approach to secure it somehow.
But what is your viewpoint or Silverford's approach? Because it's not just those items, but literally the quantity of things that require identification. Like you mentioned that previously it was just on-prem.
Yeah.
So you just had the person, you were only identifying one person, but now will you speak more on the non-human identities and the amount of identity security that's now taking over because of that?
You're right. One of the biggest elements that is adding complexity to this problem now is non-human identities, because they are growing much faster than the number of humans in the company. Not only because you have service accounts and all kinds of different applications talking to other applications, which we've had for years. It's growing fast, but now it's growing even faster with AI, because of AI agents and all these new non-human automated things that need to talk to each other and need to access your systems, and they need to do it with some identity. How do we secure that? Even the old approach that we used for years for authenticating human users, like multi-factor authentication, for example, you would get a message to your phone and you would say, yes, it's really me. How do you do that for a script or an AI agent? They don't have thumbs to click on the app, and they don't have it's not going to work. So you need a new approach. How do you even secure them? How do you even know about them? How do you even know which of your identities is a human and which is used by a non-human? It's not always that clear. How do you know what is it accessing? How do you know if it should be able to access those things? The easiest thing is to give those AI agents or those automated scripts access to anything, because you don't know for sure what they're going to need. So why not just give them access to anything? But then you're exposing yourself to huge risk. It's really a problem that is going very fast, and most organizations are not prepared to address. So now there is a lot of hype around non-human identity security, I think for a good reason.
Yes.
We've had that offering for years. I think we were one of the first to really address this problem as one of our focus areas, several years ago. But we started from where enterprises were, which was mostly on-prem, Active Directory and Azure and a few of these things. Now we just expanded, and we announced this today. We just expanded our offering to cover basically any type of non-human identity across all the big identity providers, all the big cloud infrastructure providers, even all the major SaaS applications. So even if you have somebody created an account specifically within Salesforce or within GitHub, we can protect those too, even if they're not under some kind of centralized managed identity like an Okta or an Entra.
Really?
Yeah, we can connect directly to these SaaS applications and find all those non-human identities and secure them. But even the legacy ones, which I think is even more complex, like the Active Directory service accounts, which nobody could effectively secure, we found a way to do that also. So it's really an end-to-end solution for all of these non-human identities.
And what is that called?
So the whole platform is called the Silverfort Identity Security Platform. Specifically within that, we have many modules. I think we are at this point probably the broadest identity security platform in the market. We're doing anything from ITDR, which is detecting identity attacks, and ISPM, which is about identity exposure. We enable multi-factor authentication. We protect privilege access. We protect non-human identities, which is this module. We do identity-based segmentation. We help with least privilege and just-in-time access. It's really a very broad platform that covers all the different environments, all the different identities, all the different resources. Specifically, this product we call the non-human identity security product, which is, I think, pretty straightforward name. And where it really differentiates is first because we look at non-human identities not as a point solution, not as just an island that we need to look at specifically, but as part of the broader context of all identities. Because non-human identities, they do interact with human identities and with other resources because somebody, for example, created them. So if you created a non-human identity, if you created some account in order to run the application that you built, it's not enough for us to only look at the non-human identity, we also need to map it to you and see what you are doing and look at all of it as part of one big story. We also don't look specifically at cloud, we look at cloud and on-prem. So I think the advantage we have is just that kind of end-to-end coverage. And also the fact that we don't just give you visibility, we also have a way to enforce protection. We can prevent a non-human identity from being used outside of what it was designed for. So if you have a service account that you built and it only needs to log in from this server to this database every day, we can make it only possible to use it like that. If somebody will try to use it anywhere else, they will be blocked, which I think is really important because not only we defenders are using AI now, but attackers are using AI.
Right.
And attacks are becoming faster as a result of it, right? Attacks can happen within seconds now because they're fully automated with AI, and it's only going to get more sophisticated. This means that detection and visibility are not going to be enough because it's going to be too late. So you really need to think about real-time enforcement and prevention in the world of very fast AI-driven attacks. Detection alone is just not going to be too helpful. So we are thinking, every problem we're trying to address, we think about how do we stop attacks in real time and not just detect them.
And are there any components for Silverfort's non-human identity security that goes beyond just defending on this side and defending the NHIs that we want to be there, but is there anything specific to defending against non-human identities that are part of an attack?
Yeah, we are looking for anyone trying to compromise a non-human identity, anyone trying to use it for lateral movement or for anything malicious. Even just, if somebody's trying to use one of these accounts to do something that is outside of what this identity was intended for. Because the good thing about most of the non-human identities is they have a very clear purpose. Maybe nobody remembers it because the person who created them already left the company 10 years ago, but we can find it because we can see what they're actually doing and we can tell you that this non-human identity, we see that it's only used to log in from A to B every day.
Okay.
And by helping you understand that, we can also help you understand what it should be used for and put a virtual fence around it so that nobody will be able to use it anywhere else. Now, AI agents are making that problem much more complex because AI agents are not as predictable. You don't know that they're going to log in from A to B every day. They might do something different. That's the nature of LLMs, right?
Yes.
You can predict them. So, you may have an AI agent that is only meant to do this, but one day it does something else. Is this okay? Is this just the agent learning that it needs to do, something extra? And it's a good thing, or is it not a good thing? Is it malicious? Or is it just the agent is going out of control? That's a much harder problem, and we are focused on it now, and I think that we're going to be able to build something that is really ahead of the industry in solving that problem of how do you control and restrict the access of AI agents even in this kind of very unpredictable, very complex, fast evolving world. You still need to put some controls, because for organizations to enjoy the benefits of AI, they need to have a way to do it safely, without the AI potentially causing damage to them. So I think it's
Well,
going to be a very important problem.
absolutely, and the security teams need something that integrates where they are able to view in a broad way. So I'm assuming that like the dashboard, and I am going to also mention that you have written a playbook that is for the
Yeah.
security teams that goes well with that. But it's fascinating to me to look at the concept of having one unified place where the security teams and security practitioners can instantaneously view. Perhaps, I mean, I think we're moving through millions of non-human identities while trying to keep the human identities safe as well.
Yeah.
It's a big challenge.
Yeah, and you're right. We wrote a playbook for that because we realized that most organizations were looking at identity security as almost an afterthought until now. They were looking at it as a feature of identity management. Now that it's becoming a more important and more complex problem, organizations are trying to figure out how to do it properly. So we wrote a playbook by talking to a lot of companies. We serve more than 1,000 organizations.
Yeah.
And we worked with them to understand what is the best way to do it, and wrote a playbook that really breaks it down to the steps that you need to take, from integrating to all of your different environments and identity management solutions, to discovering all the different identities and resources, to enforcing security controls, to analyzing all of that, and make sure the whole thing is also very lightweight, so that you don't need to spend years deploying it, which was historically always the problem with identity security. The good news is there is an easy way to do it. There is a much faster way to do it now, and organizations are finally learning that there are modern ways to solve this problem.
Excellent. Now let's close on that idea of lightweight, and especially of lightweight but effective deployment. And thank you, Hed, for joining us today. To find out more about Silverfort, please visit securityweekly.com/SilverfortRSAC. For all RSAC 2025 coverage by Cyber Risk Alliance, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC. Thanks again, Hed, for being here. And stick around. We'll be back after the break with more interviews live from the RSAC Conference, Broadcast Alley 2025. Thank you, Hed, for being here.
Thank you very much.